All right. We'll start this stream with my mic working. I love getting a nice start. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. Good morning. Yes, my mic was muted. Matthew, John. Hey, everybody. Yes, thank you. Sorry for... Good thing I looked. I didn't go 40 minutes without looking at the chat. Okay, so we're back, and we are going to look at our Mario. So we left off with Mario. Actually, we can go ahead. I'm not going to load it up. Yo, the previous stream, we had our stylized blocked out Mario, and then I went ahead and made him a little bit more realistic here. We can talk about that process. So now we've got our little mummified guy. We got a little bit of Fibermesh coming out. He's got cloth on now, and we have a little scene set up. This is probably the most obvious change. So let's go into where I grabbed that, and I have a video for you actually. If we go in here to my YouTube channel and we say Megascan, there's a video here. I'm going to say copy link address, and since we have chat now, it'll be on there. So yeah, so that the skin was from scan data. So if I open up Wrap 2020, I'll show you how I did that. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, it's on my, I'm on the wrong computer, aren't I? Well, I won't show you that, but I can give you a tutorial for how to do that. So we have Megascans. Now, I'm not going in Unreal and then doing the built-in Megascan drop-down. I am doing the other method here so that I can go in here. For example, if I wanted something, we're going to go in here to 3D Assets, and I'm looking for something industrial, an industrial prop. And ooh, a storage tank. These are cool. And maybe canisters. And maybe I could put in some of these canisters to kind of do a little set decoration. So... and also I was trying to think of like what, and y'all can help me brainstorm here. You know, we got our green pipes, we got our little brick hills here, and then we got electrical box I can paint a question mark on maybe. These things are kind of, you know what, maybe I could replace those with a couple of brown. I was trying to think of like what would be those little, what are they called? Ooh, I don't want to guess. Goombas, okay. I thought it, and then I said it in my head, and I was like, is that right? So something like triangle-ish and brown would be really cool to find. I couldn't really find much of anything, but let's say I wanted to, you know, grab this dirty plastic oil container. So, crap. Hold on, let me sign in. Now, you can use this to bridge to, you know, Max Miyamoto, Blender, Cinema 4D, or bridge into Unreal Engine instead of using the direct. It's like if I was working in Unreal, which I probably will throw this into Unreal at the end of the day, I'm just going to drop Megascans right into Unreal. I'm not going to go to this external website. However, what's cool about this external website is you can go in here to your settings, and then when you go to download, you can say, hey, give me the source Z tool along with this stuff if you needed it. For what I'm working on, I just imported the FBX, and honestly, I didn't even need that high of resolution because, again, this is just Blockout. But you can turn that on, and then when you go to download stuff, you can choose what resolution. In this case, 2K, 4K, sometimes 8K. And then we'll just hit download here, and that'll go ahead and download it. And then I'm going to drop this in a folder real quick. What folder would I like to put it in? Big UE5 samples. I'm going to say show in folder here. Extract here. All right. So this is what I have now. Did it actually have the Z tool in here? Sometimes it'll have the Z tool, sometimes they won't have one. But in order to bring this in, I'm just going to say, I'm going to go out of edit mode temporarily, switch, hit Control N. we'll just grab a simple brush, import. We're going to grab the LOD0. Again, just block out view details. LOD0 here. There it is. Hit OK. And now we have that. Then we're going to go in here into the texture, import, and we're going to grab the albedo. And then we need to select that. We're going to flip it vertically. We're going to go in here to texture map, and we're going to select that texture. So when I have this here, now we have, and let's go ahead and switch that material out. And in fact, let's also go into our material settings, and we'll really pop it up a little bit. Modifiers, diffuse 1. There we go. So now we have our little plastic jug with all the little stains and stuff on it that we can use to populate. Now, if you wanted, I guess we can talk about this. Well, I'll show you something else real quick. Let's do that again, but I'm going to do, what am I going to do? Bricks. I think one of these. LOD0. Okay, good. So this is a bunch of bricks, right? And let's say we wanted to make IMM brushes out of these. Well, first we want to texture them. So we're going to go in here to texture import, and we're going to load in that color map. And we're going to say, grab that color map, flip it vertically. And then for each one of these, we're going to load in the texture. And I'm going to hit the down arrow key. We're just going to load in the texture for all of these bricks. I don't know that this is technically anything that you would need to do, but just in case. And just so you are able to see, if I go into solo mode here, as I'm cycling through my subtools, these are all different bricks. Well, they're all geometry pointing to different areas on this map, right? So I have an IMM brush of cool textured bricks. So if I want to capture these, and I want to capture them this way, let's say, so when I drag them out, they all drag out from this direction. Is this the direction I want? Yeah. I'm going to hit B, create insert multi-mesh. And then if I go back to my scene here, go out of solo mode. So let's say I just want to add the jug, and I can just duplicate that jug around. So I'm going to say append my plastic jug here. We'll hit W, and we'll go and select it. And we'll say, I can always go in here like scale unify, and that'll put it in as a primitive size here. So let's rotate this 90 degrees, and now we have a little jug we can go and, again, just kind of populate our scene with. Oops. And if we want duplicates of this, instead of making an IMM brush, you can literally just control drag out, and there you go. So now we've got a bunch of marching jugs. So now there's that. And if I want to keep like just a little area of things I want to work with, I can just control drag this out, say subtool split mass points here, and then now I have just a little collection of things I can duplicate in and move around and stuff like that. Now, as far as those bricks go, you can see here I've got a plane with a bunch of bricks and like little metal pieces if I want to like build out a little bit more of this scene. Let's go ahead and Alt tap this one. I'm going to hold down just to keep everything organized. Let's see here. Okay, so if I control drag this out, this will just make a copy of this one, and then I don't need all the little stuff on it. So there's little pieces on there. I'm going to hold down Control Shift. Well, first I'm going to say split mass points. Grab a little piece of this plane, do Control Shift A, and then delete hidden. So essentially all this plane is, if I go into Polyframe here and we turn off our texture map, it's just an appended. To get a plane like this, just go in here to append plane 3D. That'll automatically make it a Polymesh 3D, and then you probably want to call it something just in case you need to find it. Of course, I just duplicated things off and didn't rename them. But so this plane has UVs. So if I go down here to UV map, you'll see I have UVs. This plane automatically has just UV 0 to 1. So we can go in here to the texture map for this. I can swap it out for our brick texture. And then now, if I'm using this brick texture, so if I go out of Polyframe mode, to draw this IMM brush, as I'm drawing this out, because it has textures, it'll drag out this brick. I can also go in here to my brush options. We can say modifiers, and we can say multi-mesh selector to 3, which is random. And then if I want to make these all the same size brick, just hold down Control as you're dragging. And then now you can go through here and just start dragging out you know, random bricks, and you can stack them on top of each other, and you can move them around. And while that plane is selected, as long as you have visible geometry in your scene, you can do the same thing out here. You can just use your IMM brush to kind of go through there and drag out bricks. Or you can copy bricks here and then just like we were moving around the jug. So there's that. I don't need this anymore. However, if you want to save this, let's go into solo mode here. It's like, I want a brush for this. Go in here to brush, select icon, that'll grab what's on your screen here. And then you can go in here and say brush save as. And we have this in our ZBrush 2023 ZBrushes IMM, and then I have like right here, bricks, mossy, dusty. Also what I do is go in here to texture, grab this and say export, and just export this as a PSD right into that same folder, just in case, because again, these IMM brushes are going to rely on that texture. And those are actually fairly lightweight because they're not the Megascans, they're just LOD0 geometry, so just a couple, you know, this whole pile of stuff is 40K as opposed to millions. Not to say that the scene is all that light, but that's mostly Mario's Fibermesh. Now, other cool thing. Now, if I was to go in here, and there's the new Redshift renderer. So if we go in here to render, and we say, what do we say? Redshift renderer, we turn that on. Default panorama is fine. And if we want to render this now, right now we have Skin Shader 4. So if I go up here and say, okay, go ahead and render the scene for me, it's not going to render any of these textures, because in order to render textures that are assigned, we'll let this kick over. So the first time you go to render Redshift, it's going to take a while, just because it's sending data over, but then every subsequent render you do will be a lot faster. Let's see. Cool. Yes, I am live on YouTube. Sorry about the audio earlier. Yeah. So yeah, the integrated bridge has a few more options than the, there we go. So it kicked off the render, and then now it'll render the scene, but of course it's going to render white. So I'm going to go ahead and, can I escape out of this? Mesh has textures assigned. Yeah, so it'll tell you to render, please use a Redshift material. Cool. So that tells us, oops, we have to go in here. So I'm just going to choose, you know, I want a little bit of sheen. I'm going to go in here to plastic, and then we'll go in here to material, and we'll just take this reflection roughness and we'll crank it up just a bit. And then now when we render, and again, I don't have materials assigned, it just has RGB information. And again, any one of these things, if I alt tap here and we scroll down, again, we have a texture map loaded. So it's a texture map loaded on a piece of geometry. So now when we render, there we go. Isn't that not real? As Revelation they say it is, did it change workflows in the game industry? For sure. Yeah. And they got it working for foliage now, and single-sided lighting for foliage. So major foliage improvements as far as performance and then fidelity. And it's a lot easier, like as far as, I mean, here, I'm not an environment artist. I've done a couple tutorials, so I know just enough to be dangerous, but it certainly seems for an environment artist, anyway, to make a big difference. Oh, and you know what I need to do, especially, so our lighting is really not set up well, but we do probably need to turn on, I turned off smooth for all of our objects, and as you can see, because we're not using the full ZBrush resolution versions of these assets, we're getting some faceting. So for example, and also that sheen isn't really helping. I'm going to turn that up just a little bit. I didn't want a ton, just a little bit of reflection roughness. Let's crank it up even more. So you can do spot render. So if I go through here and I alt tap this object, we can, when we send it over, we can tell it, hey, Redshift properties, smooth the surface. That'll be on by default. We'll hit Control R to render just this region. And then now we'll see a little bit of a difference here, I hope. Oh, and also we can check out. So this is, let's change this to CUDA. And let's go up here to, what else would we be using? CPU. Is it Control R? Did we do it? Do I remember the right hotkey for it? Okay, there it goes. So now, yeah, bumps up C view. Yep, kicks in on the 3090, and then it does a quick render. So, oh, you know what? It's still 2. All right, we're gonna switch this out to basic. We'll do another render. Okay. Yes, absolutely. My pleasure. Plugins let ZBrush go into Windows mode with the taskbar open. That I don't know. Right now, if you actually saw my screen is gigantic, and I'm only using the 1920 by 1080 right in the middle of it. So, and that's generally how I work anyways in ZBrush. I don't need like a monster ZBrush window. All I need is, you know, just some basic stuff. So anyway, here's the scene being lit right now with the default panorama, and don't forget there's a light in here. So maybe we'll talk a little bit more about Redshift rendering, but I think that's all I'm going to do for now. We'll swap this out with I think we're done. So we'll go into our startup material. We'll talk a little bit more about some stuff. Uh-oh, let me check it out. Oh no, I wonder why. Let me see. Yeah, says it's streaming. View on Twitch. Nope, it's not. Well, sorry, Twitch. You lose this one. Okay, so we got this, and we're gonna, what am I talking about next? I can't open Wrap, but essentially what we did was this. I can open, I can give you a video that'll walk you through it here. Basically what I did was this. I wrapped, just like I did with my Ninja Turtle, I wrapped scan data to my Mario. So I'll copy this to you. By the way, if you were wondering what we are and what we're doing, most of what we're looking at here, or playing with in ZBrush, will be right here on my YouTube channel. If you go down here to the intro to ZBrush, new and updated, there's like, okay, intro to ZBrush stuff, and then also my ArtStation page has that kind of laid out with some more goodies in there. So I always like to put these links on there, just I don't know, in case that's helpful. This we can close, this we can close. So this is all, so if I alt tap on the head here and go into solo mode, this is literally just, and we're gonna have fungus and stuff coming out of here, so I didn't do a tremendous detail job in there. But it just scanned data wrapped to my Mario head, and then I transferred that back over along with, and I just did it through Polypaint. I'm not looking for super duper high fidelity here. So we have our little, and again, I can go through here and we can make adjustments. So for example, again, we're not using a texture map, we're using Polypaint. So I can go in here to, oh, that's something I should mention. If I want to change the color of this, for example, this little plastic thing here, let's switch back to, move those materials around. So we have this here. I'm going to go in here to texture, select this texture, go in here to adjust colors, and let's say I want to change this to, I don't know, a green jug, maybe a little less saturation. And you can also tint it if you want to. You can actually go in here and choose green and then tint it. You would tint the whole thing with whatever color you want. But of course we change the color here. So let's make this just a tiny bit more green. We can change the RGB intensity, contrast down, and also I'm also looking for maybe gamma is what I'm looking for. That's like a contrast too. Intensity, yeah, this intensity. So I can say okay, and then I can just go down here. This is still calling to, I guess, a cached texture. Go in here and just select it, and then now you have a little green bottle. There's that. Now, because this face isn't using a texture map, we can go in here to Polypaint. We can say adjust colors, and same deal here. Incidentally, you could also, in that window for changing your texture, you can do it in here too. You can select a specific color. So if I just want to change like the dark red portions of his face to a different color, I can select that, and I can change the tolerance. That'll select more or less of that dark red, and then I can go in here and make those adjustments. You can also invert your mask and all that stuff in here. So you can do that. Let's go ahead and turn that off. And then you can also just do an overall hue adjustment. So if I want to make him, so I don't want to do any, I don't know if these are like technically spoilers or not, but like a little bit of green. Last of Us style. So green, saturation down a little bit, intensity down a little bit. Maybe we want saturation up, but intensity down, just to kind of darken him and then give him, actually we can kind of maybe tint him a little bit. Although I did a hue shift on him, so doing a tint with this color is going to be dangerous. That seems to work okay. So again, I'm just kind of dialing in what shade of weird I want him to be. Here. And then we can paint on top of this to enhance whatever. So now he's got kind of a sickly sheen. So if you want to do that, by all means, that's how I would change my Polypaint. Of course, you could also he has UVs, so we can go in here if we wanted a texture to play with. We can go in here to texture map. Oh wait, does he have UVs? Oh, he doesn't have UVs. Well, we can make UVs for him pretty easily. Yeah, I guess we can talk about this. So if we go in here to Z plugin and we say, let's turn this texture off. UV master, it's not symmetrical. We do have polygroups, and I want to work on clone, so it dumps it down to the lowest subdivision. We do have a polygroup down here, which is great. I could determine if I wanted to. I can go in here and say enable control painting, and like, you know, the face. Standard brush RGB turned on. I do want to generally protect the front of the face, and then the back of the face, you can hit a track and say, I don't care what happens back here, whatever. And then you can try to unwrap and then flatten and see how that does. You can also be more specific. So if we unflatten and then we copy these UVs and then we say, let's go back into here and we'll paste our UVs, and then we'll go down here to UV map again. You're going to see in 2023, let's go down here to our lowest geometry subdivision level, and we'll turn off Polypaint so we can see a little bit better. We can go down here and we can say, what can we say? We're going to crease our seams, and that'll go ahead and put creases where our UV seams are. And then we can go through here and we can say, let's go into our Z modeler brush, BZM. We're going to hover over an edge. Yeah, hover over an edge. We're going to say crease edge. And now you can go in here and we can uncrease. So you can say, you know what? For the front of the head, I'm going to go ahead and uncrease this. We can also make sure that UV master creased this polygroup edge because we told it to. We turned on polygroups. You can also go in here and just say crease PG for your, or underneath your geometry crease menu, crease polygroup. And that'll go ahead and do that. So in this case, I might just say, you know what? Heck with it. Let's say uncrease all. Let's crease PG for crease our polygroup, and then we can go through here with our points. I'm going to hover over face and say do nothing. I'm going to hover over an edge and say do nothing, and I'm going to hover over a point and say crease shortest path, and I'm going to go right up the back of the head. So here to here, that's where I want a crease to go. And then I can manually go through here and just start popping things out, pop his mouth and nose and ears, and just manually go through. And then you can say unwrap here, and then you're good to go. You can also try just doing an auto seams unwrap, and then we can take our bump down, morph UV, and see what this gives us. Unwrapped it all in one thing, so I'll leave that up to you. So however you want to UV this thing is fine. And then now that you have UVs, you can go here, new from Polypaint, and that'll transfer your Polypaint to a texture map based on this size. So 2048, 4096. I think you can also type in like all the way up to 8192 if you wanted to. So there you go. But we'll turn that texture off. We don't need it for now. And actually, honestly, we don't even need UVs. So we'll say delete UVs. Just wanted to let you know that's available. We'll turn off polyframe here. We'll go back up to subdivision level 6. And with this, for example, we can say, okay, I want to hold down Control and we'll mask a little area here, and we're going to go in here to Fibermesh. We're going to say Preview. Oh, yes, single-sided. Make sure you go down here to Display Properties, turn off Double, which it looks like it was, so I'm not sure what that's all about. Now this one, okay, that's kind of interesting. So I guess when I was first doing this, I had this here, and I have these, oh, singles, okay, this is, okay, that was telling me something else, sorry. In here, under modifiers, I went ahead and cranked up the profile, so it's not a single plane that I needed to render out to get thickness. I actually had real geometry being generated. So this was pulled from, if I go into comma key, we go into fibers, I started with maybe one of these and just kind of modified it to my needs. All it's really doing is on the width profile, I'm telling it, hey, start out thin and then get a little bulbousy at the end and then come back in for a little teardrop shape. And then I go from the base color, which is like a little yellowy, to a kind of a sickly orange on the tip. And then no matter where I put this, I can go through here and I can just do a preview. Skip this note. So now I can have these things growing. Of course, I can have more. So I can go in here to max fibers and we can have a whole bunch coming out. Or less, and then gravity right now is negative, but we can have the, if we wanted to, we could have them all, and this is all camera based, so if we move our camera this way, we can have our fiber, our little gross little, I don't know, fungus spores doing that. But I'm going to go ahead and say gravity up. There we go, and now we've got fungus among us. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those. So if I was to do this, maybe I'd do something like, something really disturbing like this. And say here, dial in whatever numbers I want. Now this isn't, you say like, oh, it's going through the head, I want to change that. You can't change it now, but you can go in here because it is fiber mesh, even though it looks like geometry. You can go in here and say, okay, let's crank those max fibers down just a bit here, and then we'll say okay, accept. And now we have these as an actual subtool here selected. So if I want to go in here to like BG brush groom, lengthen, or brush groom toss, hair toss here, you can go through here and then you can go and comb. Let's go ahead and turn this original one off. Go and comb your fibers out here. Blue. And of course you can do you can use any brushes with these. If you go in here to like spiral, you can, you know, kind of twist and turn these things around and get all sorts of crazy stuff that you want. And again, it's just fiber mesh. So that's that. Now, if we wanted to do hair, I don't know how to reset fiber mesh. Do I? Is there a fiber mesh that's just like, hey, default? I mean, I can just grab one of these. These are probably fine to start with. I don't need anything too nuts, and even the default's not great. So let's try that. So now if you want to save that fiber mesh settings that you've done here, just go into fiber mesh save, and then you can pull the all these settings back in if you want to recreate that fungus. But for now, if we want to give this guy a little chin, let's go in here to preview, and I'm going to change this. So I'm going to go in here to Lightbox Fibers, which we were just in, and I'm just going to double click this one. This looks about right. So now we've got an impressive beard. I'm going to change this length profile down and this max fibers down here, and now we've got a little bit of hair we can play with. And we're going to go in here to our profile is 1, so it's just planes. But when we hit VPR to render, or when we send that over to Redshift, whatever settings you have in here is what's going to render. In fact, it's also going to tell you, hey, the subdiv of 2, it's when I hit BPR render, it's going to smooth this, going to subdivide these twice to get a nice smooth result. It is going to send that heavier geometry over, so just something to be aware of. If we're cool with this, and again, if you just want to change the base and tip color, you can. Say, okay, we're good. Go in here, change whatever settings you'd like. And if you want more information on like growing fiber mesh through a Polypaint and stuff, of course we do have stuff here, a bunch of fiber mesh examples that we've talked about over the years. So now we can say accept, and now we can go through here, and what do? We go BG groom, PG groom hair toss, and then we can go in here and you can start styling this hair, but you know, just to kind of get it to go the direction that you want. Then you can go in here. Let's turn off Polypaint so we can see a little bit better. Hold down Control and you can just mask little areas. I think this is the J Hill thing I was watching, and then you, just to kind of make it look not so groomed, go through here, and then instead of doing anything, because you do have a bunch of groomy stuff in here, but a little more controllable. If you just want to clump something, literally go in here to the pinch brush, go in here to your move brush, and then just start, you know, pushing this stuff around. Of course, if you're so inclined, you could take these as curves into Maya and use XGen. You could do geometry first and then take those into XGen, or you can just go into XGen and blah, 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 plot in whatever you want. So there's that. I actually kind of like them with a little goatee, but that's okay. I'll go ahead and delete that out of there. This was just thrown in the Marvelous Designer. There is a video on that I can give you. Again, Marvelous. Convert geometry and UVs to Marvelous Designer clothing patterns and back into ZBrush. Is this? You can just check this out. You know what? Share, copy, fine. And you can just do what I did for all of his clothing. Let's see. Let me get caught up. The deadly plant in the pipes, right? So there also should be probably mushrooms, right? Something. So we'll work on those today. We'll work on the actual fungus that he's plastered to the wall with, as well as these mushrooms, as well as, yeah, any sort of weird creature we could have looming out of this pipe, maybe towards him. That could be fun. Good call. Let me, God, we could just do a creature version of that, right? Do a hyper realistic, I don't even know what these things are called. Little piranha grabbers. ZBrush said Asia's workflow and rendering with Redshift. Oh, that's a good question. Heck, I don't even know. Where would that be? I haven't played with this a ton. Oof. I'm not sure. This is where the Redshift renderer settings are, and then you have material settings, and then you have light settings with the background that you use as your, and then this has HDR samples, gamma exposure. I don't know. Best way to extract armor from a mesh, extract. There's a million of different ways to do that. Did I do anything on armor? Armor. I guess not a ton on my channel. Yeah, use extract, mask and extract. Or we're also going to get into mesh projection. That could be a fun way to do it. AI generated 3D models. I've seen a little bit of it. Played around with Midjourney and Chat GPT. Very cool stuff. Massive always get sharp results when moving with work with low polys with dynamic on. Am I missing something? Whenever they mask, they always get sharp results. So we have a cylinder here, and we say mask, and they always get sharp results, even on a low poly mesh. That sounds like nonsense to me. Let's see if we hit D for dynamic. Yes. Here, and then it's a little sharper. You can go in here to focal shift down and sharpen up your edges, but again, it's still going to be kind of aliased. I don't know how they're doing that. It's magic. Yeah, I don't know why my Twitch isn't working. My web page thing says it's connected. Cool. All right. So we'll delete this out of here. And you know, all these bricks, we don't need them. Delete all. Okay, we'll go back to our scene here. We don't need this thing in here. We don't need this duplicated head for our UVs. And now we're going to talk about, you know what? Now that's in my head, I got to do it. Mario Tube. Tube Piranha Monster? Piranha plant. Okay, that was close. That's pretty good. Piranha plant. So we can just make one of these real quick, and then we can get nuts. So, okay, let's do that. So let's go. We haven't really done anything to this scene, right? That's just kind of sitting here. Okay. We'll let that sit in memory. So we're going to go through here. We'll make a sphere, drag it on our canvas, go into edit mode, make Polymesh 3D. I'm going to grab a... Actually, this will work perfect. Give me a sec. Save image as. Let's throw it on my desktop. WebP images. I wish you didn't exist. Open image, a new tab. There we go. PNG. Thank you. Desktop. That'll work. So now, let's do it. Texture, import. I always like to have reference. It keeps me honest. Desktop. And plus I'm not that great at eyeballing, I guess, is really the real reason. Add it to our spotlight. So everything we did yesterday for Mario, we'll do for this Piranha plant real quick. So we're gonna hit Z to go into spotlight mode. We're gonna drop this opacity down. Of course, I'm gonna go in here to movie, timeline, show. And then, okay, so first I need to see if I'm Z forward. And it's a little bit difficult when you're working with a round shape because, oh, let's turn off LSM. Here we go. So Z forward here. So this is the front of my head. I think I want to turn Z forward this way. And then we'll just kind of position this here. And I'm going to set a little thing here. So we're going to turn on X symmetry. So we're symmetrical across the X axis. And now no matter where I move this thing, I can always snap it back. And then we're just going to, gosh, how do we start this? Battle plan. It seems like it's a little, okay, that's fine. We're going to go in here to knife curve, and we're going to say, okay, I want a mouth. I'm gonna make it a little more centered on mine. Again, we're just going to use this as general proportions here. So now I have his overall mouth shape, right? And let's see what that bottom is looking like. That is just straight up cylinder. Okay, that's fine. That's cool. So now all I really need is the shell because I want to make his mouth empty. So I'm going to hold down Control Shift, grab Control Shift with select rectangle, grab the pink, delete hidden. We don't need to see this anymore, so just movie timeline show off. We have X symmetry turned on again. And honestly, it's the same in both directions, right? So let's do symmetry in the X and Z. So mirror and weld in the X and Z here. And then we'll go into transform and we'll say activate symmetry in the X and Z. So now we can sculpt on both sides. So we're going to go through here. We'll say zero mesh half, depth size down to 0. And that'll just give us a nice low res result here. And then we'll go ahead and make the shell. I'm going to go out a little bit. So Q mesh, let's do extrude, polygroup all with our Z modeler brush BZ. I'm going to pull out a little bit and then hold down shift and pull in a little bit here. So when we go back, we've got a good start here, and then we're going to have those lips. This is the bad thing about letting that sit in memory while we're working. That's okay. It's not going to take us more than 20 minutes. So before the next quick save, let's see if you can finish this. So now we need to get geometry for these luscious lips this thing has. So let's go ahead and duplicate this off. We'll go in here to Shift D, Shift Z, sorry, get rid of our poly frame temporarily. I'm going to grab everything. You know what we could do? We could just use this to frame. So I'm going to grab Control Shift. So we duplicated this off. Control Shift, tap the red and the yellow. We'll say delete hidden. We're going to go in here to stroke, curve functions, frame our polygroup border. Yes. So BC brush curve. Now I have a sneaking suspicion if I use curve tube on this. Okay, worked okay. Turn off X symmetry, use curve tube, and then that'll give us basically our lips. Now this goes thicker to thin, we can change that. I was afraid that that resolution wasn't going to be great. If you needed to, you could subdivide this, go down here to geometry, delete lower, and you could get a little bit more fidelity, but honestly I think that's fine. Okay, so we'll tap away from here. If you can't tap away from your geometry for any reason, you can go in here to curve functions, delete, and now we just have this along with it. So it'll auto mask this. I'm going to do a quick visibility, hide point, Control Shift drag, geometry modify topology, delete hidden. You know where that stuff is. It's all in this area here. So now if I go into solo mode, Again, we want to go kind of thick to thin, so I'm going to hold down Shift. Let's do a quick mirror and weld X and Z on this one, and then a ZBrush same, just to get nice, cleanish geometry here. So again, also transform for this one, activate symmetry in the X and Z. So now when I hold down Shift to smooth, it'll get thinner in here. Let's hold down Shift, turn down our Z intensity. So we can go vaguely thinner to a little thicker. And then we're going to use Move Brush. Let's turn out Z plugin. We don't need to see that around. Put our brush back over here underneath Brush Curve. Turn on AccuCurve with your Move Brush, and that'll allow you to kind of pull down 2 points. Now, not that we need to pull this to a really tight point corner, because that's not how it looks. We can actually go in here to inflate and kind of smooth that out a little bit. But all right, so we got our little monster. And then we need to put teeth around there. 1, 2, 3, 4 teeth, top and bottom with a little tongue. Okay, we can do that too. Also, incidentally, we kind of made, oh, you know what? I'm going to do this one, but we also, I probably could have just pulled in, do I have him on here? Or her? They? This plant creature. This was a live stream, so a 2-parter. We made this plant creature. It's not quite, I guess, you know what, it could work. We can maybe use some techniques from when we did that, but yeah, we'll do this. So what's the next thing we need to do? We need a cylinder. So I'm going to say append a cylinder here, and this automatically makes it a Polymesh 3D. Let's hold down Alt and scale it along this axis, and then we'll push this down. I don't know what spans I'm going to need, so I can always go in here to Geometry, Edge Loop, and then say delete loops, and that'll go ahead and get rid of those for me. This might be a bit much, but that's okay. We'll live. So again, here, we'll just scale this down and we'll kind of match this. And then right along here, we can just use Control-Shift-Slice. And you know what? Let's do Control-Shift-Slice brush radius. So when I slice, it'll give me a little bit of a bump out. So when I go through here, I can say Control-Alt-W. Let's go to Unmask Mesh Center, and then we can just scale this out. You can use ZModeler for that too. You know what I need to do? Hold on just a second. It's also good while I'm doing this. Where did I put it? Oh, no. No idea. Desktop, date modified. There it is. Okay, I just want to have this image up so I can see a little bit clearer while I'm working. Okay, so that's not quite right. Let's hold down Control-Alt-W and we'll scoop this up a little bit. And then if I need to round these things out, I can. And this is also just, you can just put in control loops. If you're going to be texturing things, you want generally nice even quads. So you can just go through here and say, okay, insert multiple edge loops, keep polygroup. Just come in here and just click till you have nice even quads where you need them. That would be my suggestion. Or you could put in control loops here. I think we're okay. In this one, in this case, let's go ahead and do a group by normals. Let's turn off your floor. And turn this off. So if we do a group by normals, it's going to look at your mesh, and then any angles that are bigger than a 45-degree change will get its own poly group. And then we can go in here and say Crease BG. This one probably needs like a crease level of 1, smooth subdiv of 2, or hell, that's even too much. Let's just uncrease all. Don't need it. Just a nice smooth fall off. And because we packed in so much geometry along here for texturing reasons, we don't need to probably put in a ton of control loops. We can go in here and we can say, you know what, let's inset polygroup all legacy, and we'll just pull in a couple here. Or again, you could do insert multiple edge loops. I think this will work. Yeah, just put in, if you want quads down here, go for it. Hold your oyster. D for dynamic. There's that. Shift Z. And pull this down just a little bit. Boop. Okay, teeth. So teeth should be pretty simple. So we have X and Z symmetry. Let's make that its own poly group. I'm just going to go in here. So for y'all, it would be BI brush insert IMM primitives, grab a sphere. I like to use my own custom primitives. We'll say sphere, you know what, it doesn't matter because we'll Z-remesh these. So sphere 32 is fine. We'll put in a tooth here and a tooth here, or you could put in, if you want to get more specific, I guess the teeth go inside. Where's my, Anyway, just to show you what I'm looking at, I'm just looking at like a 3/4 view so I can kind of get a better sense. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 1. Okay, so 3 on the top, 4 on the bottom. So, and they're on the inside of the lip. They're not seem like they're buried that much, so I may have to go in here a little bit and just kind of ease this lip forward just a tad here. And we'll squeeze this too. We actually can go in here and pinch brush. Yeah, maybe. A little bit smooth. Okay. Okay, so again, grab a sphere here. We're going to put in one tooth right here, and if you pull back, it'll thin out the object, which is useful in this case. So we'll do a top and a bottom tooth. We'll go ahead and rotate these around a little bit here. And then for the tops, I'm going to hold down Shift, and we're going to smooth the bottom out. And then we're going to hit W, or you go to your move brush, whatever your hotkey for that is. If you don't have hotkeys, I would suggest storing them. And let's do a quick split mask points. Because what we can do now is we can say Control Shift if we want. We don't have to do this part. It's just going to be buried in the head. But if you want to be Control Shift, tap spacebar to get rid of that brush radius, then we can knife curve this. Let's do a quick mirror and weld. Oop. Let's knife curve this side. Mirror and weld. There you go. So now we can do 0 mesh half, depth size down to 0, keep groups, smooth groups down to 0. That'll give us new geometry, and just keep hitting half here. So now we have teeth. Of course, you can make a teeth IMM brush. That's totally fine. But I think for our purposes, we'll go down to mesh center, and we'll say these things kind of follow. I don't know why this is giving me such a hard time. Come on, Mike. It's not rocket science. Let's turn on LSim with dynamic off. And that'll allow us to kind of scale on that local axis here, and we'll kind of thin these out. These poke out about yay far. Well, let's see. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, so teeth are in, and they can be as curvy as you want them to be, and as sharp as you want them to be. If you just want to kind of thin them out a little bit, or you go back here and you can inflate, move, whatever you want. And then when you're ready, I'm not loving that for some reason. Maybe a little bit further in. Okay, we can fix it in a minute. And then hold down Control and drag off a copy. We'll rotate this around, and this will be 1. I'm trying to be accurate, but I'm having a hard time. 1, 2, 3. No, or is that just, oh, it's just 1 in the middle. That's why. Okay, I was like, I'm looking at this and it's not making a lot of sense. It's because, it's fine. So we're going to put 1 in the middle here. I'm just going to put these really close together, because what we're going to end up doing is moving 1 in the middle, and then 1 over here, and then 1 over here. And of course, while we're doing this, we could be embedding this more or scaling down. Of course, when you cross over an axis, sometimes they'll get sticky. So just make sure those don't cross over if you can. Okay, and then we'll Control drag. I'm going to do a quick auto groups, and then geometry modify topology. Turn off LSim, mirror and weld, and then these blue ones I'm going to go ahead and get rid of. Now we'll split these off. Sorry, this is getting nasty. Auto groups, I should have done it better. I didn't realize this is only 1 tooth. Delete hidden, Control W. I'll just do this real quick. X symmetry off, move over. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're gonna make this thing gross in a second, and then these ones still are good. Control tap these points, and now we can kind of space these out a little more evenly. Rotate around. Okay, geez, that was more trouble than it needed to be. And then make some slight modifications here. Oh, if you want to move these around, of course, brush, auto masking, and I'm going to turn on topological, and we'll change that range down a little bit. There's also a, I always say this, BM move topological is also in there if you want to set a hotkey to that. Nice and easy. There we go. These should be considerably smaller. And then we'll go ahead and merge these down, even though they're not going to be perfectly symmetrical. If you were worried about that and needed it to be perfect, just do another mirror and weld across the X and Z, and then ZRemesher same. Keep groups. And that'll give you new geometry and make it perfectly mirrored. So, oh, did we do that? Yeah, okay. So, here, teeth, teeth, teeth. 1, 2, 3. Okay, W, control tap these. Let's make these even smaller. Pack those in. Take these ones a little smaller. Pack them in. And these ones need to get closer. Okay, that's where reference comes in, right? So these ones should be down here-ish. These ones should be down a little further. Sorry, this is boring. And then these ones should be okay. And then we'll something like that. What else needs to be done? We got polka dots. That's going to be on the paint job probably, maybe enhanced a little bit. And then we got leaves. Okay, I think we're close. So if we want to go and pose this out, or first if we want to like sculpt on it, we can probably sculpt on it in this mode, and then we can go and pose it out. For the leaves, let's do this. Let's do a quick save. And then we're going to go into make a plane 3D. Here, let's make it a Polymesh 3D. Here, and then we're going to say geometry, Control D a couple times. We'll go in here to mask. You know, we'll turn on X symmetry because it's basically something like this, and back around, back around, back around, something like this. Now the cool thing about 2023 is I can go in here to, where do I go? Masking, region, analyze region, tell it fill in that part, and then we're good to go. So we got this, we got this, we got this. Okay. So there's basically our leaf. Let's go in here to polyframe. We're going to say geometry delete lower and then do an edge loop mask border to get this. Say delete hidden, X symmetry's on, ZRemesh half, dash size down to 0. And we'll clean this up a little bit. If you ever get this type of thing where you need to go in and help it, it's not that big a deal. Just go in here and say, hey, I want these to be nice and sharp. Oops, you need to stitch these together. No problem. I might actually do this instead. We'll do a bridge edges instead of a stitch, because stitch is going to favor one side or the other. And then we'll just do a quick mirror and weld across the X, and then we can just collapse this edge. Or, yeah, we might need a stem. So we can hover over an edge and we can do BBCDE, extrude, edge loop, and we'll just say extrude, 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 extrude an edge out. Perfect. Hit Control W, and now maybe we'll just do, yeah, let's try ZRemesh half. Yeah, same. Nope, that's fine. We can fix this too. So this isn't bad. You know, I can work with this. I could fiddle with those settings, or I could just say, hey, this is fine. Okay, so we want to play with this a little bit more. Let's do just a insert multiple edge loops, keep polygroup, we're good. Just a little quadded out. This I'm not thrilled with. We could, it's not a huge deal. We could really just say, really? Oh, we want a bridge 2 points, sorry. Here to here, and then delete this here. Okay. Again, not great. That's okay. So now we want this to be a leaf. If we don't want to commit geometry just yet, we can fake it. We can go down here to geometry, dynamic subdivision, turn on dynamic. I'm going to turn off smooth, but we are going to crank up that thickness here. And we can say B, create insert mesh, new. Go back here, and then we can just insert mesh brush. Oh, we're not in here. We're in here. And then this will be coming out of a tube here. So we can just insert these leaves. Rotate them. Ah, they got sticky. And let's go ahead and say, so when I drew these out, it didn't capture the thickness because whatever the subtool I'm IMMing them on is going to dictate what settings they have. So I need to go back in here to our geometry dynamic, and then again, smooth down, thickness up. There we go. So now they're split in their own subtool. I can move these out, rotate these around. Let's turn off dynamic, and Shifty is a way to turn that off. That's fine, it doesn't matter. Okay, so now we've got X symmetry turned on here, and in fact we will make that literally just X symmetry. Don't need X and Z symmetry. And then if we want to, we could say maybe, oh, you know what? Will it do it? Let's say bend curve. Heck yeah, cross X-axis bend curve. Look at that, nice. All right, so we can bend this here. We can do a little twist. We can, what else can we do? Squeeze, twist. We can't do a bend arc this way. I mean, I guess we can. Let's try it. Bend curve is good. Let's try a bend arc in this direction. And then we'll change that radius. Yeah, that works. Good enough. And then you can go through here and modify this. Now again, these are just flat planes, so if you need to make any major changes, you can. But anyway, yep, that'll work. Something like this. So we have this little creature. Let's do, get him into our other scene. I'm going to do a quick Control F. We'll say Piranha. We'll drag these in here, and we will then say Z plugin, subtool master, copy folder, go back in here, paste folder, and then we can say Piranha, transpose set, and then I can go and put, turn off X symmetry. That just basically turns on move multiple, and then we have this little guy that we can go through here and we can pose out. And or I can just use that working file. I'll go ahead and put this in here just to kind of as a stub in here, just to kind of play around with the idea and see what we might need to do. And you know what, I might need to actually see how far out from the wall this needs to come. Not yay far. And then that means easy to follow. So again, move multiple here, Control Shift drag. I'm just going to grab this tube and this tube, and we'll scooch that a little bit. And then for posing, really I just need this kind of bent. So what we're going to do with that selected, we're going to go to Unmask Mesh Center. If you needed to find, so we do Shift-D, this is just simple geometry, right? W, you can Alt-tap this to find that I'm just looking for that straight up and down normal angle, or you can just reset it since it's straight up and down. Is there anything in particular? Yeah, we'll do the neck. So we're going to turn on transparency. And again, just to have a little more control, I'm going to say bend curve, put in dial in the resolution and the axis that you want. And then now we can go through here and we can say, okay, it's going to be kind of looking this way with a little, let's just tell you, like this little nice little S curve in here, like this, like a little spine, you know. So we've got this looking this way, and the spine's going to go this way, then back in a little bit, maybe towards the front, whatever. And now we have this, so great. I'm going to say Alt Tap this one. Again, we'll go in here to move multiple, and we'll just grab these pieces here. No, yes, wait. Transparency off, it's throwing me off. Grab these head pieces, minus the wall piece, rotate around here. Have it tilted down just a little bit here. I don't know, something like that. So when we go and do it for real, it'll end up looking a little bit like that. And then we can make this goopy and gross however we'd like. to kind of fit the scene here. Let me move this back. There we go. Okay, sorry, haven't looked over in a while. Thank you. Second instance of the mesh with another rotation so it can work as seeing your mesh from another perspective at the same time. Yeah, you can use array mesh. Could do that. So for example, if I have this here and I want to be working on it, and again, so this symmetry it's not world symmetry. We can turn on local symmetry and it'll work. If we turn this off axis, we can turn on this dynamic button. If you were wondering what's new in 2023, I can give you most of that minus the rendering part. Intro to ZBrush 2023, what's new? This first one right here, the quick start dynamic symmetry, which has been updated since this video. So in that video, you're going to see LSim just does dynamic. In 2023.1, dynamic, you need to turn that on for this dynamic to kick in, which is good. It's a good functionality to have. So anyway, we want to work on this across the X axis. Nope. Z axis. Nope. X axis. So we're working across the X axis, but we want to kind of work here and we want to see a version of it. Let's go over here to array mesh. Lock position, lock size, transpose W, hit Y to go in the transpose line, and we'll just move out a copy of this, and if we want to rotate it, we can. So now, you know, while I'm working in this view, you can have it looking at another view. But there's no like, oh, I want to have a different camera. You kind of have a split screen in transform you can use, but it's not going to work the way you think. We'll just turn that off. Fat folds, damn standard, get weighty overlapping fat. I don't want them to look like wrinkles, but big, large dailies. Yeah, so big overlapping geometry is sphere, make Polymesh 3D F. So here is our X symmetry. Okay, here's our X symmetry torso, zero mesh half. And we have legs here. And then now we want overlapping fat, right? So I'd maybe use like damn standard 02 to cut in. However, if you're using Dynamesh, one thing to be aware of is if you're Dynameshing stuff and it's like, okay, I want to cut in, you know, an overlapping fat and then control drag, or it's overlapping, but you know, it's not going to stick out like that. It'll be overlapping, right? And then you control drag, it's going to sew it right back up. So when you're doing overlapping stuff, you want to cut in. And it's going to look bad for a bit, but you can do, it's like, okay, this is my fold right here. Let's do a zero mesh, half depth size down to 0, just to get nice even quads. And again, if you had, you know, a bunch of detail, turn off L, Z add dummy. If you had a bunch of detail you want to keep, no problem, just control tap that point in history. So while you're zero meshing, you're getting your low res geo, and then this is what you can do to go, okay, let's project history, control D, project history, control D, project history, control D. So we have our details back. We'll smooth this out. We can use project, we can do this, BHR history recall, and we can, oh, can't use symmetry, but you can do a smart resim if you want to, but that's not really the point of this. So if we go over here now, it's like, okay, fat doesn't look great because it's not going to overlap like that, but you do have subdivision history now. You could use Sculptris Pro if you don't want to go into ZRemesher stuff, but I'll leave that up to you. We'll back this out so we can get a nice soft, here we can actually control tap that to make it even softer, and then we will have geometry that is actually going to overlap here. So while you're working, you will have geometry that actually folds over. Same thing with eyelids. You can go in here and you can do a display properties flip here, and then you could actually pull the geometry in from this angle or smooth it out from in here, or you know, use your pinch brush or inflate brush. You can actually work on the, basically you can work on the wrinkles from the inside if you need to, but that's how you would do or one way to do overlapping geometry. I'm not saying this is the right way, but at least you could have geometry that folds over on itself. Cool. All right. Cave-like wall and tile, a honeycomb pattern, hexagons pretty much. What would you recommend? Noise? Yeah, that's an easy one. As far as the honeycomb part, how usable it is, I'm not certain. But yeah, it would be. So we'll turn on D for dynamic, surface, noise, noise plug, hex tile. Plug in, so mix basic noise down to 0, plug in scale down, strength, so you can see it. There we go. Something like this, and then you can go in here to strength up or strength down, say okay. Now this one is planar projected, so it's going to be generally terrible. However, we do know we can go in here, we'll do Shift D, and we can say Crease PG, and then I can go in here now to UV map, and we can say creased edges, symmetry, I don't really need, so unwrap, and then we'll go back in here to our surface noise, say edit, we'll say use our UVs here, we'll change our plugin scale because that's going to modify that, we'll change our strength now, so now I say okay, and now it's going to use our UVs for our hex tile. Hooray. Cool. Is there a way to wrap a part of an object or a whole object around another object, like skin wrapping? Yes. Yes. You can use dynamic. I'll send you the video because it's not really relevant to what we're doing, but there's a couple different ways you can do that. If you're talking about like snapping an object, you can use dynamic. Here's 2022. What's new? Nope. 2021. What's new? So there's a bunch of different ways you can do that. This one might work for you. So you have another object that you want to snap to another, and it's just cylinders. Or if you want to wrap an entire body. So here's a couple cylinders. You can use dynamic to with a collision volume to suck it to the mesh, and then you can do a project all or a project history to project those verts to the nearest vert. You can do it with entire bodies. You can do it with primitives to another mesh. Of course, you can also use, there's brushes you can use. So like BMM, there's matchmaker brush. There's deformers you can use. But dynamics and project history is probably your best bet. I am busier for some reason, like end of last year, beginning of this year, it was not great. Did not get as much done as I would have liked. Staying busy. So, okay, we got this. Okay, so we need to start doing our fungus. So we have a wall back here. If we hold down Control, and we kind of did this at the, and if you don't need this and stored in history more, just Control tab that a couple times. So let's get my reference out. Did I move it? Don't need that anymore. So this type of, let me get a good shot of it. This type of splattered kind of reference here. And again, we touched on this, a couple different techniques in the beginning of last video, or the end of last video. I'm just going to start with the main shapes. So let me back out so I can get a better idea. Okay, so main mass goes out and then kind of flopes out. First I need to make sure, I can always move it around, it's not a huge deal, but generally speaking, this is kind of where I'm playing around. So for this, let's do this. I like to always have, I'm going to append a Polymesh 3D star in my scene. And in fact, let's hold down Shift and shoot it to the very top. And I'm going to move this back. W. Oh, hit Y to go out of transpose mode. Okay, so we have this back here. And I'm going to do, there's a bunch of different ways you can do this. You can go in here to VTO for topology brush and go in here and literally just drag out topology, and then as you go across here, you can just make whatever topology you'd like, and then you can just tap off, and that'll give you a thickness and blah, blah, blah. You can clean this up and then hold down Alt to get rid of some of these. So topology brush, look it up. It's a good one. And then again, that's just, it's part of this subtool, but because I have other subtools looking or available to be seen, it'll just snap to whatever. So if you wanted to like drape geometry across something, this could be another very controlled geometry across something. You could do that. There's also some brushes that'll do it. So if we go in here to B, it's a curve brush. BC, I got a bunch of C brushes now. I'm just looking for curve snap surface. Yeah, that'll work. So curve snap surface, kind of the same deal. You can go through as you're drawing a curve. So see how that little rubber band wants to continue that stroke? That can be really annoying with this brush. So go down here to your curve snap distance, turn that from 60 down to like 8. And then now you can go through here and you can literally just draw geometry and it'll kind of snap. And then your brush size, I think, dictates how thick all those are. So that's another option. What I'm going to do is, let's do this. Let's say hide point, geometry modify topology, delete hidden because I don't need that. There's also, if you hold down Control, there's a bunch of mesh extrude options in here. So like mesh balloon's a cool one. You can go through here. Another thing with this stroke, hold down Control and just turn off lazy mouse, just so I get a little more. So there's a little curved balloon. This one, I don't really remember. Let's let this save real quick. If I hold down Control and take my Z intensity down, hold down Control and do your Z intensity, because otherwise it's going to do to your other brush. That'll make it a little bit flatter. And then you can change some settings to go in here to mesh splat. So if you, and again, hold down Control, stroke, lazy mouse off. So that's actually introducing a little bit of noise into the curve. It's under the brush curve, I believe. No, it's under, oh, I don't remember where it is. Somewhere in here. Oh, hold on Control. Yeah, it is under the curve. In here, you can introduce a little bit of noise to the curve, and that'll give you that. If we switch back here to like mesh balloon, there you can see this will actually control the shape of the mesh balloon, and mesh balloon is literally just putting a mesh that balloons based on that curve. But what we're talking about, here's mesh extrude profile. So if you do mesh extrude, same deal. Let's turn off lazy mouse. So here's, it's just extruding. Now this one, if we turn up the Z intensity, it's not going to make any difference, but this one you would have to control, I believe, with modifiers, strength multiplier. Yeah, that'll make it thicker. And then down here, sorry, you could also just Google mask mesh brushes. Down here you have mask mesh modifiers that you can change some of that bevel settings in here. And then the other cool one, I mean, you can also do it with alphas, which is totally cool. So you can go through here and just do shapes, or you can load up, I think you can load up alphas. What is it? We do drag rack. Nope. Rectangle with an alpha. Yeah. So now you can use shapes, and you can hold down Control Alt and punch in things, and then Control Alt and Shift if you want to kind of punch or add things. It's really neat. Mesh Project is the one with the blanket. So if you go through here, and again, stroke, lazy mouse off, you can go through here and kind of drape geometry on stuff. So if you're going through here and you just want to kind of, you can also use dynamics for this too. So you can just put a blanket in your scene and just dynamically wrap it. So we'll say delete hidden. If you missed that part of ZBrush, if we go through here, let's just grab this one here. Plane here, and we'll say split mask points. I'm going to do a crease so it'll keep my edges a little bit better. Here. Oh, we had X turn on. Auto groups, isolate, delete hidden. Smooth modifier, divide. Delete lower. There we go. So now we have a plane here. Let's go ahead and hit D for dynamic, and then if we go in here to our dynamics here. You know what I really don't want to do is make a collision volume of this entire scene. It's going to be a nightmare. But you could have a collision volume of this, and then you could drape this on there, and then it'll just fall down like a blanket. Y'all know how to do that. Okay, enough about that. So back to our shapes here. I'm going to be doing everything on this star back here just because. Hold down Control, Mesh Project, and we're just going to need some general shapes. So this will kind of be like, you know, kind of one of these shapes here. Let's do this. It's going to kind of go out and then back around here, and then another one. I could plan this out actually. Let's do that. I'm going to take this wall here. I'm going to turn off the texture. I'm just going to plan this out a little bit. So again, standard brush. You know what? We'll do BPA for a paintbrush. Oh, coffee, awesome. Keep me awake for the next hour. Okay, so we have this. What are we doing? What are we doing? Painting. Okay, so where do I want this to go? Let's do just a fill, and then we'll come in here and we'll say, okay, generally speaking, I want this to kind of be one little area, and it's going to come connect to him, you know, through a couple of rivulets. So maybe we'll make this a little bit bigger. So we'll connect this down. So something like this, and then maybe something like this will point back to him, and then this one will come out and kind of splotch back to him, and then maybe we'll have some other just miscellaneous ones doing whatever, but they'll be smaller. So he'll be kind of stuck to the wall like that. Does that track? That sound like a plan? You think the reason why hard surface modeling is harder in ZBrush because you have n-gons? It certainly makes some types of hard surface modeling more difficult or less flexible, I suppose. But there is some hard surface modeling I could only do in ZBrush because it would be a nightmare to try to figure out. For me, a nightmare to figure out some hard surface workflows and other traditional box modeling programs. ZBrush has some cool tricks that those ones maybe kind of have, but ZBrush is a good alternative. Yes. Tool like Cut in I don't know what 3D Studio. I haven't used 3D Studio Max since I was in college, so I'm not sure what Cut does. But if it's like a Boolean, you can use Booleans in ZBrush or a knife tool or something like that, maybe. Yeah, I don't know why Twitch isn't working. Let's see here. Yeah, exactly. That's how I do my hard surface stuff. Have an idea if the ZBrush legacy is really gone 23. You get at the same results with retry alt. I never really used ZBrush legacy. Like I've always used whatever the latest ZBrush is. That's what I use. I think ZBrush wasn't working nice with some CPU something or other, or something. I'm not sure exactly why, but yeah, that is gone in 2023.0.1. Make UV maps in ZBrush. Yeah, go to the beginning of this channel. There's a couple different methods. Or on my channel here, there should be a ton of stuff. Maybe. I mean, it's all in here. I just don't know what the right search term would be. Yeah, there you go. UV Unwrap. That'll take you through. I think that just goes through both the UVs and UV Master. Specifically UV Master though. Yeah, UV Master. It's in there. But I do agree. You can do UVs in any program. Cool. Alrighty. Cut is like split in ZBrush. Oh, so like split different objects, or yeah, that geometry can get a little bit messy if you do go through here and you're like, You know, and in fact, you can have an entire brush set up so that you have ZModeler slice. So here's if you want to like slice through geometry, and then also have let's see, face. I guess that would be set up. Okay. Anyway, but that split is just like splitting parts from a subtool, I think. Oh, split verts. Gosh, have I even used that? Yeah, there's. I don't do that a ton. If I wanted to take a piece off of something, I would just go in here and just like take the polygons that I want out of here. For example, I go in here and send QMesh this off, and then just hold down Control and just pop out a copy of this. Let's do Control Alt so we can get a new color. Or I could like split this split by polygroups. What else is there? There's so you can split point here and then go to the other side and split point, and then you could, well, shit, is that the other side? This one? I think. QMesh, you can QMesh through. I missed it. How can I tell? Okay, let's make this easier on myself. If I want to split a point and then go to the other side and tap to make it the same point, and then QMesh through an object, that'll actually stitch it for me. So now I can go in here to Crease PG, hit D for dynamic, and then you can just like poke a hole or box model a hole through an object, like so. And of course you could do that. Just the cool thing about QMesh is you can go through here and you can literally just pull through Crease PG if you want to. Crease level 1, smooth sub of 2. A lot of different ways to skin a cat in that particular thing. Number 1 pipe dream feature still missing a ZBrush. Gosh, there's a couple things. I don't know. Kind of depends on what I'm working on and what the day is. Let me think on that. As I'm working, I'll shout out my wish list. So we have this here. I'm going to go through and I'm going to select this one, and then okay, let's make some headway. We got an hour. Okay, so B. We were holding it on Control, doing mesh project. So again, I'm going to go through here and I'm going to say, okay, so like this is going to be this big old splotch right through here, and then down here we'll do another big splotch. Here we'll do a smaller splotch, and then over here and like I said, there's a million different ways to do this, but that's one of them. Okay, so for brushes, we have a couple different options too. Let me get my creature document out here because it's been a while. I did like, that was a cool one. So just to refresh myself, we did this in the last video too, but again, just so I can remember, for spherical nodules, and I'm actually going to go through here. I'm going to say, I'm going to do auto groups. Auto groups here, and then I'm going to say isolate this one, split hidden, and then for these, I'm going to say split to parts, so they all get their own subtool here. And then now, so we want to start detailing this up a little bit. So we need some lumpy stuff. So if we go in here to B blob, you can go through here and it's whatever geometry you have is what it's going to affect. If you want, you can go in here to Sculptures Pro and that will give you some more options. So let's go in here to stroke, curve off, and then we'll say Sculptures Pro. I'm going to turn I guess adaptive size I'll leave on because it'll kind of depend on the size of my brush will dictate how big my polygons are. If you turn this off, you can now drag and select. So if you want to Sculptures Pro at this resolution or Sculptures Pro at this resolution, you can. So there's that. And this is an okay brush to kind of go through. Again, with Sculptures Pro turned on, we'll turn adaptive size on. I was going to go through here and I was going to kind of and it's kind of an inflate brush. What I was worried about is if you do this on a thin mesh, so let's turn Sculpt Pro off. So for example, we're using clay buildup, and then say you wanted to Dynamesh this. Goodness gracious. I forgot my clay buildup has auto masking built in, which it won't for you. I don't think, unless I change that. Brush, auto masking. So if backface masking is off and you're using this and you Dynamesh, it's going to do that to your mesh. So you just got to be careful to go into auto masking, turn on backface mask. You can have a hotkey for that too, and it'll just do it for whatever brush you have selected. You just toggle that on and off with a hotkey. So that's what I usually do. So for example, I'll have backface masking on for clay buildup, so I don't deal with that. But for brush blob, it looks like I don't need to worry about that too much because it's like an inflate, so it'll just inflate the geometry. And again, this is just using my current geometry and kind of blobbing it out. And instead what I want to do is turn on Sculptors Pro, because again, we're going to use this to kind of do some of that fungusy stuff, right? So we'll just go through here and turn on, get some more context going, and we'll go through really quickly and just kind of, so we're going to build this up. It looks like it's got some little blobbies here, and then it'll have some little tendrils kind of going back. And again, if we want to, we can, you know, go through here and Dynamesh this, control drag, go to solo mode, control mask lasso or mask pin, control drag to Dynamesh here, yeah, if you want, and then you can continue to use Sculptors Pro and Dynamesh back and forth if you'd like, which is probably what we'll end up doing. Okay, so that's cool. That's a cool brush. What's another brush we can use? This is kind of sounds like a neat one. Nudge Sliver. LMN Nudge Sliver. Oh, you can kind of use this. Let's turn off Sculptors Pro. So you can use this instead of doing this. So BS, there's a spiral brush that you can kind of go through here, and you can kind of hold down Alt and let go of Alt, and you can kind of twist things around. Brush Nudge Sliver will allow you to kind of just twist geometry around if you need to do that. I don't know that we need to do that just yet, but just keep that in your back pocket. Spiral we just talked about. Brush pin wet dot. So if we're going to do these little scraggly things, we can just literally go in here to our standard brush, turn lazy mouse off, crank that Z intensity up, and then you can go thick to thin and thick to thin. There's a form brush we're going to use, but let's try this one. Brush scales. Sorry, these are just things I was kind of messing with. Brush tracks. Yeah, so let's go in here to brush pin wet dots. Wet dots? Let's see. Turn on Z-add. Wet solid, sorry. Can't read my own writing. So yeah, so this is actually a brush that you would normally paint with. So if we go in here and give ourselves some color, you can see you get a really cool like brush stroke that kind of fills in behind it. But if you turn on Z-add, you can use this as another kind of thick to thin option for you. So for example, if we're going to do this, we could say maybe go thick to thin, and it's going to kind of go in this, and we're going to clean this up a little. We're actually not going to, I don't know if cleaning it up is the right word, but yeah, this will give you some interesting little branches that you can kind of go through and do this type of stuff with. Get those little brainiac little things going. Okay, there's that. Brush tracks. Brush. Elemental P tracks. Yep. Trails M2. Yeah. Trails M2. Another one that turns Z-add on. It'll turn it from a pin brush to, and also let's crank the Z intensity up. And this one will it'll kind of continuously pull up too, so you can kind of get some really cool like fungus shelf things. If you don't want to use IMM brushes, you can kind of pull out a little shelf Now this one, looks like back face masking's okay. I don't know that we'll use that one a whole lot, but it's there if we need it. Okay, and then there was one more I wanted to talk about, but I don't really remember what it is. So anyway, really quickly, again, we just use our standard brush or the form brush that we were messing around with, or what was the form brush one? I thought I had a form brush in here. Oh, form brush instead of inflate. There's also, under brush miscellaneous, if you want perfect spheres or more spherical, that's not a little more controlled than the blob, you can go through here and you can use, let's turn off RGB, and in fact let's turn off colorize. You can use this to kind of make spheres. Just keep tapping and it'll kind of bulge out spheres. Of course, this one you do want to use backface masking on, and there's probably some other ones too, but I think we've got enough to kind of play with. So let's go back to our standard brush here. Let's see how many little, it seems like there's like major arteries that go through. You could use alphas for this, I suppose, but I think we'll have enough fun. And then there's kind of minor arteries that kind of branch, little capillaries here. And then we also talked a little bit about, or if you go to the 2023 videos, the slime bridge. I don't know that it'll be super useful for this in particular, but you can check those out too. So again, we're just having fun making our gross little things here and doing a little bit of storytelling with how these things kind of work. So we'll say this is good enough. Now, we do need to kind of poke some holes through here. So what's the best way to go about doing that? I'm going to go through here. I'm going to grab a cylinder, and we're going to turn on double-sided because I'm going to be holding down Alt. So display properties, double. So when I hold down Alt and pull through, that'll put in a little subtractive mesh in here. And we're using Dynamesh, so I can go through here and I can start poking holes. And then these things I'm just going to delete out of here, but we'll say maybe poke a hole here, and then poke a hole here, and poke a hole here, and maybe here. So now that we have this, I'm going to control drag. That'll go ahead and poke my holes for me. I'll hold down Shift, going here to Sculptors Pro, and we'll just kind of, and again, I'm going to have to go and redo some detail, but this is just a way for me to kind of get some holes going in the mesh. And then I'm going to go through here. I'm going to say, what direction are we in? We are in the X direction, looking straight down, or while we're looking at this, the X direction is right at the camera. So when I go in here to my brush settings, we're going to say depth, infinite depth in the X direction. So now when I go through here, I can kind of pull these into the right shapes that I want. Probably a more elegant way to go about doing this, or you could build in your mask shapes with this, or you could use, you know, if you needed to get a very specific shape, obviously better options, but we're just kind of playing it fast and loose for now. So we have our shapes in here. Again, if you want to eat away geometry, you can use Sculptors Pro with Shift Smooth turned on. So you can literally go through here and just kind of chew at little sections in here. So we're going to say these are all solid through here. That seems like it's okay. So a big old solid mass through here, and then we'll kind of chew this edge around here. And then, oh, here's another one, BSH. There's a bunch of snake hooks, so snake hook 2 and sphere, and then with Sculptors Pro, these do some really fun things. So if you just needed to kind of pull out a little thing. Now these are coming at the camera. That is controlled by, I believe, brush modifier. So at 0, it'll just kind of pull along with your brush. At 100, it comes right out at the camera. And then 50, or I guess that's on a exponential curve, it'll kind of split the difference. So in this case, probably if I want to stick with the brush, I can literally just have little things growing out. Of course, you can use IMMs for that, or like we did earlier, fiber meshes. But long story short, we can also do BSH for snake hook, and we can just take the end of this and we can just kind of keep dragging it out. And that's going to, with Sculptors Pro, it's tessellating on the fly. So you can actually go through here and you can, you know, pull little tendrils out of here, and you can use IMM brushes to connect these back up. And also Z-Sphere, remind me if I forget, Z-Sphere, Z-Sketches is probably how I'm going to do the bulk of that. So anyway, back here, we'll just re-Dynamesh, turn off Sculptors Pro. Yeah, we'll stick with their solid. here, go thick to thin. It just has a nice, it really just kind of pushes, it gives me a nice solid tendril for those, the kind of main tendrils. I like it, so we'll lean into it, right? Okay, good enough. I think it's been a while since I've done organic stuff in any real meaningful, like, sit down and do a bunch of it kind of way. It's been a long time. Okay, so we've got this, and then we've got our secondary that we can just dial in with our standard brush here. And then if we want to connect this back, or, you know, continue doing this for the other stuff, is there any, we could do some, like, maybe some spray. And let's go ahead and we're going to connect a few more connectors here. But now we want to connect these through maybe. So just like we have a little star sitting out here that we're doing, that we did a bunch of work on and then separated them out, we can do kind of the same thing. We're going to go in here, oops, delete that. We're going to go through here and we're going to say append a Z-sphere. The Z-sphere is just going to sit in our scene. I can hit Q, let's select it. Hit W to go into move mode for my, yeah, okay, we'll let it save. All right, give it a sec. Okay, let me get cut off. Oh boy, there's a bunch. Here, and the good news is we've really just done a bunch of talking about theoretical uses. So even if it didn't save anything, it would be really quick to recreate that fungus because we did a lot of talking and not a lot of action. I wouldn't say UVs and ZBrush are industry standard other than just getting quick UVs, but I mean, it's fine. You know, if you just need quick, if you need quick UVs, UV Master's fine. If you need something very, very specific, which when you talk about industry, if you're talking about production work, probably you do need it to be a little bit more specific. Then yeah. Okay, so we didn't lose anything. I am gonna, let's delete this out of here. And then we'll say append a Z-sphere, take the Z-sphere, hit W to go into transpose or move mode so we can move the Z-sphere back. So just out of the way really, because we're going to use this. Again, it's sitting in here, right? So we can go in here to ZSketch, edit sketch, make fairly small brush size. So now while we're Z-sketching, maybe, we were just doing this last live stream. Am I crazy? Edit sketch, transparency mode. Oh, we had to hit Q to go into draw mode. Duh. Okay, so Q to go into draw mode, and then now we can use Z-sketching to go through here and just draw little trails of Z-spheres. And so this is really cool for like creature work, and it'll kind of it'll go across anything. So again, I can just drag through here and it'll go down and around and up and over, and we can very quickly kind of dial this in. You could do something very similar with the, I guess this, we need to actually connect these back. The other cool thing too is that while we're doing this, you can hold down Shift to smooth, and you can smooth together little Z-sphere, little branchy Z-spheres things. So you could actually start with something like this and then end, and then go in and add your mass stuff as well. Think. There's IMM brush too. If you remember back when we were in the last live stream, we made a custom IMM brush. You could use curve brushes for this, but I like the snapping of a custom brush. So if we go in here to IMM, and what did we call it? I don't really remember. I guess we could just recreate it real fast. I probably should, just for completeness. So yeah, let's do this. Let's go to cylinder, initialize. We just see something real simple. So 8 and 3 for our initialize options, and then we're going to say make Polymesh 3D. Let's go in here to insert multiple edge loops, and then we can go boop boop. Again, just 3 even parts. Grab the top, Control W, grab the bottom, Control W, Control Shift top, Control Shift bottom. B, create insert mesh, new. So now we have an insert mesh brush, but of course we want to go in here to curve, stroke, curve, mode. And then under brush modifiers, we're going to say weld points, maybe stretch, maybe a little curve res. And now we have just an IMM brush that we can say bend start, bend end, snap to surface. Go back here, and now we can have like an IMM brush. Let's go back to our star. Alt tap the star here. So with that selected, we can go through here. Go back to our IMM brush here, and then of course you can save that out. And now we'll have an IMM brush that does the exact same thing. Now if you want it embedded a little bit, not just sitting right on the surface, go in here to brush depth, and we'll say embed at 0. So now it'll be kind of half and half. So as we're dragging this out, it'll stick in half, and then you can, use this to kind of go up and over and around things in your scene as like a little tentacle thing. And it's a curve brush too, so you do have the ability to go through here and update this curve and kind of slide it around your scene. It should be kind of snapping a little better than that, but I don't know, maybe it's not. Interesting. So there's all that. Let's go ahead and do another isolate, delete hidden, just giving you options. And then we'll go back to our Z sphere here, and we'll delete it out of our scene. We'll append, grab it, W, move, Q, go back into draw mode, go down here to Z sketch, edit sketch, make a really small brush size, and now I wonder, and then so now we'll kind of take a step back and we'll look, and we'll be like, okay, really small brush size. Again, thick to thin, and then we'll connect these here, so again, thick to thin. All the lines kind of leading back to this guy here. And in fact, let's go in here. Let's hit W, go to move multiple. I'm going to go to the top here, Control Shift drag over all the Mario parts, and then Control Shift Alt drag over all these other parts here. So just Mario is selected. Let's hit Control F, say yes, folder for all these, give it a name, and now I can turn that off. Literally select anything else. Turn off move multiple. All right, now I can see. Go back to our Z sphere, which is here. Shoot it down to the bottom. And then again, we are in edit sketch mode, presumably. Yep. All right, so very small brush, thick to thin, maybe a little smaller. And we'll just kind of connect these back up. So he's in this area, and then we'll use this to kind of do a little bit of drawing. Okay, looking at this, yeah, maybe this will connect back here. Do an interesting little thing, and then these things just kind of, it looks like they're kind of just searching for stuff, and kind of have this growing up and around this thing here. I don't know, happy little fungus tendrils. And then we'll also make some Mario mushrooms, I think. Yeah, we've talked enough about this, so you get the idea. There's a bunch of different ways you could go about making a shape like this. Probably a few better ones. I'll stew on it for a bit and come up with some maybe better solutions. These are just a little on the fly. For something a little more exact, maybe. So here they're kind of reaching out. Okay, and then we've talked a little bit about like snake hook to kind of pull those little gross mushrooms. You can also just, use IMM brushes with mushrooms. Just make one mushroom and then go in here and kind of stick them on. So let's make a few mushrooms just so we have them available to us. I'm going to save this scene. It's good enough We didn't really, anything we've done today up to this point could be recreated in about 10 minutes without talking. But now you know the techniques, so go for it. Mario pose test 7, and then we'll go through and we'll make some mushrooms and use them as IMM brushes. Expensive. Oh, back in my day. If you think ZBrush is expensive, I got bad news for you. Gonna do any vids on Wrap or Wrap 40. I'd love to get your feedback on it. I don't have the license now. I'm on the wrong computer, but like the video I sent out should be, it's pretty self-explanatory. You load this in, you say, hey, I want to select the points, it wraps, you export it. There's just some selection things you can do, but cool. There was a SNL skit that was kind of Mario and The Last of Us, but it was Mario Kart. What is this thing hanging out? Where does this go to? Alt tap, solo. Huh. Control Shift A, geometry, modify topology, delete hidden. Same kind of vibe, kind of like a weird, gross, hyper-real Mario land. But mushrooms, we're going to talk about mushrooms. So edit, switch, Control N to clear canvas. Let's go into our reference here. I'm just kind of looking at, okay, basic mushroom shape. These almost look inflated. You know, they kind of sag a little bit. We might be able to use cloth dynamics for that. Might be interesting. But again, they're just basic shapes. So that could just be a, again, I always try to do like, hey, these are interesting functionality things in ZBrush. When in reality, you just use a clay brush. Dynamesh, clay brush, Damien Standard, call it a day. So let's, okay, so we're gonna do a mushroom. So let's start with a sphere. Edit mode, make Polymesh 3D, go into polyframe mode, turn on our floor so we're Z forward, X-axis symmetry. And in fact, let's do this. Let's go in here to transform. And let's also switch this out. And let's do symmetry in the X and Z direction. Or you know what? Y direction, radial count. You know, 8 is probably, I'll crank it up. So what we can do now is we can use this to kind of go through and, you know, make our mushroom shape. And we're just literally kind of using it as a lathe-ish or kind of potter's wheel or something like that. So you can go through here and you can kind of sculpt out and hold down shift and smooth. And you just kind of get a mushroomy-ish shape here. Of course, we'll probably end up using ZBrush, but that could be one easy way to kind of do this. Let's do it. Let's go in here and let's do a Dynamesh here. There we go. So again, just getting a basic shape. I guess that's it. And then if you wanted to, you could go through here, like I was saying, just use your Damien Standard brush or Dam Standard 02 and cut in. And then again, let's go ahead and crank this up. So this would be kind of a brute force methodology to kind of just go through here and be like, hey, what shape do I want? Okay, I'll just use radial symmetry and then use your move brush and just kind of go through and knock yourself out. Make a mushroom. My inclination and just kind of Dynamesh as you go. So that's, again, knock yourself out. Usually what I'll do is I like to kind of work in separate pieces. Now you could use that methodology and then mask and Z-mesh and then rebuild the pieces, and it's not that big a deal. But usually what I'll try to do is like turn on X symmetry and then be like, okay, here's the overall shape. Let's do that again, X and Z symmetry. Here's the overall shape that I'm looking for, and maybe it comes out and then kind of domes off, I don't know, mushroom shape, right? And then Control Shift knife curve, and we'll say just kind of slice through here and kind of just make the top, and then we'll say ZBrush half, depth size down to 0, keep groups, move groups down to 0, and then we can just get some new geometry. And then now I can go say, okay, I want this cap to be its own thing, and then I want to use this geometry to kind of do the underneath thing, and then from this I can go through here and say, let's do a cylinder right down the middle, and we'll say split mass points, and then we'll do a insert multiple edge loop. Well, let's make this a little bit longer here. So if we put in a control loop right about, so we'll say insert single edge loop. So I want to kind of bulge it out here and maybe thin it in here. So you can say, you can even go through here manually and just put in some edge loops like so, and then you can say scale, edge loop complete, and you can just kind of grab and then grab this in, and then, yeah, something like that. You can kind of just kind of bulge in and bulge out your shape with very controlled geometry. There's also deformers that'll do it too. So if you wanted to kind of play around with insert multiple edge loops, there's so many ways you could do this. We could do like we did before and use mesh balloon to even do this. We can go in here to deformers and say, again, do our bend curve deformer, add some resolution, and then through each one of these you can go through here and you can use scale. You can kind of thin it out and then bulge it up, and then you could even twist it if you wanted to. Anyway, like you already know, a million different ways to do things. And then for this like wrapper here, let's do another ZBrush half, because what I kind of want to do is go through here and I'm going to say again scale edge loop complete. We'll kind of bulge this out, and then we'll kind of tuck this underneath like so, and then this will kind of curl up underneath, and then this bottom part we'll have as a separate mesh. So are we happy that this is a mushroom shape? Sure. And then we'll take this off. Actually, we'll do this. We'll duplicate this. So on this original one here, I'm going to do a slight, let's do insert single edge loop. We'll get rid of this one. Then we'll do a quick inset polygroup all legacy. We'll pull this in a little bit, and then we'll say Q mesh polygroup all, and then we'll just hold down shift and we'll just pull that back. We'll say crease PG, crease level of 1, smooth so div of 2, and that'll kind of give us a mushroom working shape. And then for this bottom one, I'm just going to take this bottom piece here. We'll say delete hidden, and then we'll say Q mesh polygroup all. I'm going to pull. If you pull up, it's going to flip your normal, so just go down here to display properties, flip, and then now we have it underneath the working part. And we can use Q mesh polygroup all, just hold down shift and just pull along that surface normal if we want. Like I said, it kind of sags a little bit here and then kind of tucks back up underneath. You know what I'm going to do instead? Let's do this. So instead of this, we'll say delete that out of there. I'm going to take this thing here, we're going to duplicate this one off. We're going to say group by normals, control shift tap, delete hidden. So now we have this mesh here. We'll go ahead and give it some thickness, and I'm going to go to unmesh mesh center, and we're going to push this up. We're going to hold down alt, and we're going to scale this out, because now what I can do is, let's go ahead and scale it so it kind of fits here. So when I go through here and I say insert multiple edge loops, I can do interactive elevation. So when I click and pull, I can actually like give it a little bit of a rounded sagging look. And let's put in some control loops. So insert single edge loop first. So I want to control, want it to kind of be, let's go to solo mode. So while it's around that stem, that's the highest point I want it to be. And then I also wanted to kind of tuck back up in to about here. So now as I go through here and do an insert multiple edge loops, it'll just put it in just this area here. So now you can see I'm getting that kind of sagging look, and then we say control W. There we go. So instead of sculpting, you could box model your way, whatever's more comfortable for you to get the result you want. Now if you do want nice even quads, this is where I would go in here and say, you know what, let's do this. Crease PG, D for dynamic, D for dynamic, Shift D to turn it off. Let's go in here and apply, and now I'm going to do ZBrush. We have X, activate symmetry in the X and Z direction, so it'll give us symmetrical geometry. ZBrush half, keep group smooth groups down to 0. There we go. So now we'll have nice even quads with new geometry. You can even go a little bit lower. And now we can subdivide our way to success. Now, this thing here, same deal. We did a group by normal. No, we didn't. Group by normals, that's under your polygroup. So then crease PG, blah, blah, blah. And then D for dynamic, smooth so div of 1, crease level 1, smooth so div of 2. Same thing for this, crease level of 1. Yeah, 2, smooth div of 3. And then this one here, 1, 2, and let's do 3. There we go. So we got kind of a mushroom shape with different parts, and then we can go through here and, you know, kind of play around with how these things fit together. Now, as far as like the little fluting that goes underneath, that you could do with box modeling. You do it with array meshes. I'm going to end up probably baking this out, so I'm just going to keep it simple. We're going to go in here again, activate symmetry in the Y direction with radial symmetry, and then let's just see, I'm going to say dynamic apply, so it's real geometry, and then as I go through here with my Damien standard brush, we can just do that really quickly. So let's do Control D, let's drop our radial count down a little bit, and there we go, call it a day. We can say Alt and then come down here and just kind of pull out. Let's go into solo mode, so we can go from where it's hidden all the way out. And then we can hold down Alt if we want to pull up a little bit. Maybe a couple different brushes that might work there, but good enough. And then for this thing, I don't think anything special on here, so we'll say Dynamic Apply, Control D once. I'm trying not to go too high because I want to use this in Insert Mesh brush. And then we can go through here and we can say, let's mask here. That's fine. We'll mask and then we'll inflate just a little bit here. And then we'll smooth. Heck, we could even do radial symmetry on this thing. Activate symmetry, radial symmetry, and then we'll keep the radial count fairly low. So while we're smoothing and then sculpting, we can just kind of use this to kind of get some work done quickly. And then we can turn off radial symmetry and just have no symmetry. And then you can go through here and refine this mushroom however you'd like. Whatever. However you want to do it. This thing here. The tops, maybe we'll go in here to radial, not use pulses of symmetry, Y radial count here, and we'll go in again with Damien standard. We'll say dynamic apply, go through here. Oops, it's too many. Maybe just put in some initial kind of small kind of cuts here. Gosh, there's actually, these are pretty. Subdivide here, and then hold down Alt. And then we'll get rid of radial symmetry, and then we'll just go through and we'll, I don't know, clean that up. Lumpy, blobby brushes, standard brush, clay brush, any of that should kind of work. So we'll go back to our standard brush here, and we'll just kind of use this. If I want to accentuate, give it a second. If I want to accentuate some of these creases, there's a couple different ways. I can go into my contrast brush. How are we doing on time? Okay, we're right on time. Okay, so I can go through here and there is a brush, BC, brush contrast, target or delta. You can go in here and you can increase the contrast of these. So it's like, I just want a little more contrast in these wrinkles. You can also go in here, you can turn this into a cloth simulation. For example, BCK is cloth hook, and then you can go through here and literally just use cloth, right? You could even go in here to thick skin, turn that on, and you can determine based on this thickness how much of this surface you want to affect here. And there's even a cloth nudge brush, but you can also do it with any other brush. So if we go in here with our pinch brush now, it'll just pinch, let's turn thick skin off. This will just pinch geometry together. You can go into your brush, brush elasticity, simulation iterations up, and this will actually use simulation, whatever properties you have dialed into your dynamics here, it'll go ahead and use those. So you can use, instead of contrast or in conjunction with contrast, you can actually treat this like a mushroom skin, you know? So you're going through here and you're just kind of putting in cloth folds. If you want bigger cloth folds, you can go into your dynamics and you can say firmness, just crank the firmness up and it'll keep everything a little more firm, or you can just drop your geometry down. So geometry, you know, if you have less geometry, it'll automatically give you bigger wrinkles. So like this down here would be a good candidate for maybe going in here and just dialing in a little bit of wrinkly stuff for skin, and then back up here. Let's go back up to Signal 5. Some wrinkles. Go back in here with brush contrast target, contrast it up, and then now if you wanted to use this as an insert mesh brush. You could. You'd have to combine it all down, and if you wanted to use textures, we can just use Polypaint. So let's do that. Let's say this brush here, we want to say, oh yeah, let's say classic red. Red with white. So let's switch this out to Skin Shader 4. Maybe a little darker, less saturated. Control-Alt-F is my hotkey. And then we'll go to kind of a sickly under yellow. Oops. Alt-Tap here. Maybe a little less saturated here, a little more gray. And then same thing for this one. Yeah, we can go a little bit darker. Standard brush. It's RGB, or BPA for your paintbrush here. RGB intensity down. And we can just kind of, I don't know, whatever you want to do to kind of break up the surface. Now, when I'm going into texture, I'm probably going to just hop into Substance Painter and just kind of texture it up. But for now, this will be fine. We still have radial symmetry on, so we can kind of quickly, let's turn our RGB intensity way down, kind of quickly go in here and just kind of paint in some variation here, and then back on our top here. Let's dial in C to sample. You can sample different colors. Just tap C on your keyboard to sample it, and then we'll go in here to the purples a little bit, and we'll just do a little bit of just a little color breakup. We'll go over here to the oranges, and again, just to kind of, so it's not just a monochromatic red sitting there. For these circles, we can hold down Control, and again, if you just want to draw and then say, you know, just draw a bunch of circles, this would be a good exercise for like 2023 functionality if you want. It's like, okay, here's where the circles I have, and then you can go in here to your, just to close some of these, masking, mask region, analyze region, and then you can tell it what to fill, or you can just say auto region, and it'll look and be like, okay, these are basically the ones you want to fill. However, you're going to see, you know, if you do a really light one here, it's not going to pick it up because it needs to be 100% masking. Easier way to mask 100% is to go in here to brush, tablet pressure, go in here to RGB intensity. You can just drag this all the way. Oof. Can I do it? Off. Is it focal shift? Yeah. Just grab that. Okay. Reset. Grab that focal shift and just pull it all the way to the left. And now when you use your masking, it'll be like you're masking with a mouse 100% every time. So now when we go through here and we say, okay, I want a dot here and a dot here and a dot here, 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 here. Auto region, invert, fill. It is just white, right? Yeah. And you actually can do Control-Alt-Tap to sharpen this up. Oops. Control-Alt-Tap to sharpen it up, and then Alt-F here. That's a little too bright for my liking. Now, if you ever did want to go through here and change the stuff, remember you can go in here to Polypaint, and you can say Adjust Colors, and then that's when you can do your hue shift here, and then you can go in and you can just select just the white portions, and then you could tint it, or you can go in here and say, you know what, I want to take that, what would it, intensity down or up or whatever you want to do. So a lot of different ways to do that. Okay, so now let's say we want to add this to our scene. Like we did before, we can put this all in a folder and copy paste that folder in there, and we can have all separate subtools. If we want to make an insert mesh brush out of this, we can just have this as a working file. We'll just save this as Mushroom. Okay. Now, we could also do something like this, where we say, okay, let's go down here to Merge Visible. That'll dump all this stuff out into a Merge subtool here. I don't need this much geometry, and in fact, you could even combine this all into one piece. You can hit W, go in here and say Remesh by Union, multiple subdivision levels. Delete lower. Come on. Remesh by Union. Okay. And so now it's kind of like doing a Dynamesh, only it's a it's like it just uses Boolean geometry. So now we have this. I want to keep my Polypaint a little bit nice, so let's see if I can do this. I'm not positive, but we'll try it. Z plugin, Decimation Master, use and keep Polypaint, Polypaint weight up to 100, preprocess current. I want to see what this does. So once you've pre-processed once, you don't have to keep doing it. You can just test. So I'm going to go through here and I'm going to say, okay, let's decimate this down to maybe 10K polys, decimate current. Oof. No, it wants to. Here's what we're going to do. Because we want to decimate UV and then get our Polypaint back. I can project. It's going to be weird. Stick with me. So we're going to control tap these points in space to store them in history. We're going to say, using keep Polypaint off, we're going to say preprocess current. We'll dump this down to like, yeah, we'll try 12K decimate current. Yeah, that's fine. Let's drop that down to like 10K decimate current. Fine. Now I'm going to go in here and just do an auto UV. Let's see what it does. Auto seams, unwrap. It's fine. I don't care. Just need UVs. So now we have this information. And we have UVs. So now if I hit Control D, project history, Control D, project history, Control D, project history, we have our Polypaint back. I'm going to transfer that Polypaint to a texture map. Okay. And then I'm going to go to my geometry all the way to subdivision level 1, delete higher, texture still on. So now if I go to the top here, say B, create insert mesh, new. That should capture that as a brush with the texture. So if I have that texture loaded, just like when we were doing the bricks, have that texture loaded, I can go through and just populate my scene with a bunch of little mushrooms. We'll give that a shot. Let's see here. Okay. So comma key, quick save, recovered Z project. Give it a second, because that Mario scene has a lot of textures loaded into it, so it's actually pretty heavy. It's like a gig. Not the geometry, just textures. Okay, so we have this. We have this as a texture map. Okay, brush, create insert mesh, new, drag it out. Okay, so now we have a little brush here. So in fact, we can go in here and we can say, okay, cool, brush, select icon, save as. We'll just dump this into our ZBrush 2023, ZBrushes IMM Mushroom. And just to play it safe, I'm going to say texture, clone texture. So I can go up here to my texture menu and say export. And we're going to dump this in here as mushroom JPEG. So I can always pull that back in. So now if I go back to my big scene here, and I want to just have these mushrooms available again. Oh, I still have this brick one. So I'm going to grab Control Shift A, delete hidden, swap this texture out with the mushroom, and then grab my mushroom brush. And now when I go through here, I can just start populating with mushrooms. And because I'm in a scene here, let's go ahead and turn everything else back on. Here, and here, and sorry, give me a sec. Let me just get settled in here. Okay, and then I select this one because I want that texture available to me. I go back to my brush, mushroom, and now we can just kind of populate mushrooms. We can go through here and just kind of drag these out. So wherever I want a mushroom, we can just go through and have these things just kind of sprouting all over the place. And of course you can make mushroom variants. You can cycle through randomly different mushroom variants if you wanted to pack those all into one texture, again, just like our bricks. But just for completeness sake, I'm going to go through here and we'll just kind of Now these mushrooms aren't, you could also do a variation of mushroom where the neck kind of bends in and then you can drag it onto a surface and it'll kind of do that bend up thing. But we ran out of time today. So again, do what we can. But you get the idea. Have fun with it. There's our little Mario Land mushroom scene. Turn on perspective. Maybe hop over here to basic. Right. Forgot we crashed, so we need to go back in here and turn that renderer on. Render, Redshift, render, Redshift. I'm going to turn off use default. Maybe I'll use default panorama. I'll turn off a light because that really just kind of, I mean, default's not great for dramatic lighting, but okay. Cool. Inner bottom part of the head into groups. Yes. Yeah, so that whole bottom part, if you wanted to just not inflate but actually pop that off into its own thing, absolutely. Surface window on the monitor always opens in the lower right corner of the radio tape recorder. You can't move it around the screen and it irritates me. Oh yeah, that surface window that pops up, same thing. I don't know how to get that to actually stick in any meaningful way. I'm not sure how that works. That would be a Paul Gabry question. Oh, cool. Excellent. Glad Google Translate's working for my poor speech. That's weird. Well, if my screen's gone, maybe it's time for me to go too. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you later. And have a good rest of your week. Sorry Twitch didn't show up. I don't know why it didn't. But, I don't know. See you, oh, not next week. See you next month.